President Trump may have tried to interfere in the Michael Cohen investigation. This is all coming down from the New York Times. They're reporting that the president spoke with his acting attorney general, Matt Whitaker, about this notion of getting the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York to unrecuse himself from that Cohen investigation. So Mark Mazzetti is one of these reporters over at the Times who broke this whole thing wide open. And so, Mark, let's start at the very beginning. How did this conversation even begin to play out between the acting AG and the President of the United States?
Right, so not long after Whitaker was installed as the acting attorney general, Trump calls him and asks whether a new person could be put in charge of the Michael Cohen investigation that's taking place up in New York. He asks whether the U.S. attorney, who had to recuse himself out of a conflict of interest, could be put in charge. Trump thought that this individual, Jeffrey Berman, might actually be more of an ally, and clearly it indicates that the president saw this investigation up in New York as being problematic and potentially kind of spiraling out of control. So that was the request he put in to Matt Whitaker.
And Whitaker ultimately said what?
Whitaker was unable to do anything about it. It appears that he didn't take too many steps to try to follow through on the president's request, knowing full well that actually trying to get someone put back in charge, unrecused, is something he didn't have the power to do in the Justice Department. And as we reported, Trump eventually sours on Whitaker. He's angry that Whitaker's not able to carry out some of the tasks that the president had hoped he might be able to do. So it was one kind of window into the president's attitude towards law enforcement, towards these investigations, which, as we report, are kind of encircling him.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you have President Trump and his conversations with the acting attorney general. Who are some of the other players involved in this whole thing within the White House? Who else would know about this?
Well, in terms of his conversations with Whitaker, it's unclear. We don't know who else the president might have spoken to or who might have been in on these conversations. And but as we report in the story, the 2-year campaign that the president has undertaken to kind of thwart these investigations is something that's been carried out at a very high level. It's been carried out by officials inside the White House. Sometimes it's tried to be blocked by White House lawyers, but this is something that the president has undertaken with the help of some of his top aides.
Now, just recently, we saw Matt Whitaker in the hot seat up on Capitol Hill. And if memory serves, he was asked more or less, did the president ever pressure you, right, with regard to the Mueller investigation, the SDNY investigation? And his response, Mark, was no. So that doesn't jive with what you're hearing, correct?
Right. And first, he was kind of loath to get into any discussions he had with the president, but then was fairly firm in saying that he had not been pressured by the president on any of these various investigations. And after our story published, we received a comment from the Justice Department saying as much. Now, he might, we might then question the wording of the statement. The question is, what is one person's definition of pressure? Was this indeed pressure, or was this a request? So we're certainly confident on our reporting, and as we reported, this is also something that the House Judiciary Committee is now looking into, the veracity of Matthew Whitaker's comments.
Okay, and all of this is, as you guys are reporting, this is all in relation to the SDNY Michael Cohen investigation, right? Because he wanted Mr. Berman in charge of that. And along a parallel track, you have the special counsel Robert Mueller investigation, and certainly a piece of that is looking into potential obstruction of justice. How might what you have found, and I have a judge and a lawyer standing by who maybe will be better to respond to this, but how might what you have found impact the Mueller case?
That is a good question, and it's certainly unclear, right? I mean, Mueller is looking at something separate. He is looking at the Russia interference in the campaign, but of course, any crimes that come along his path in the course of the investigation. We do believe and have reported that the president is being examined by Mueller for broadly the question of obstruction of justice. The question of whether Mueller would ever charge the president is one where many people believe that he won't because of current Justice Department policy. That it's ultimately going to be Congress that decides whether the president obstructed justice. But it's certainly something that Mueller could look at if he wanted to, because he does have a pretty broad mandate.
Okay. Mark Mazzetti, extraordinary reporting. Thank you so much for jumping on the air with us. I really appreciate it.